I put this title because I wanted to make it attractive. Poison.
By adding what is poison?
Poison, there is poison. There is poison in the field of ideas. Yes. So poison is going to be hate for us, but it's a poison in many senses. The first question is, well, where does it come from? People don't hate each other. That there must be conditions to create, to make this hate appear. Yes. And there are many. You probably already think about extreme right, yes, hating minorities, which is true. This happens, yes. But it's not just extreme right who hates. So hate, hate takes ground on other layers of society, not just from people identifying with extreme right. And probably some people who are members of the extreme right, far right, extreme right, far right. Well, you don't understand a word because I make words sometimes. What do you mean? That's why. Some members of those organizations, maybe they achieve or they reach that level of consciousness through reading or just talking. There are, in my view, much more powerful vectors that convey hate. So the first thing I'm going to explain is how hate is created. Yes, you have heard about crises, yes, and capitalist crisis. You know, capitalism is a system that works in a sinusoidal way. Yes, it has ups and downs. You know? It has crises, and then crisis goes to the bottom, and it comes back. It's not just easy, but it's a bit more complicated how the economy works. But in general lines, it's like that. So when I talk about crisis, I mean this type of crisis, yes? And in those crises, what happens? Very easy. First thing is there are some vulnerable people, layers of the society, that are damaged, they're harmed by the crisis. And these people demand the state to answer their needs. Yes. And their needs usually start with unemployment, so they ask for work, they ask for protection, social protection, for health, for housing, whatever you can imagine, yes? Whatever, not everything. The ordinary needs that appear when there is crisis. This type of crisis, it can be mixed with other crises anyway. But what happens? Usually, they ask the state to do that. And if the state is a welfare state, it's supposed to answer those needs. If the state is on the hands of the extreme right or the right wing, the state is a neoliberal state, they might ask as well. But maybe the state is saying, it's the market, it's up to you. Yes? But ordinarily, it's very often when we have a welfare state, is in the hands of a certain left-wing party, yes, or coalition. But what happens in front of these demands? Very easy. The welfare state responds, but never enough. There are always layers of certain number of people who don't have their needs fulfilled. Yes, not just poor people, it's true, but also middle-class people who have been damaged, have lost their businesses or their goods. Yes, and they ask also the state to answer. Yes. Okay, then in this landscape appears it could be the left, but no, the left is in government. Yes, appears someone outside the left, outside the government, which is normally far right, and they say, you know what's happened here. The problem is that the immigration is to blame for unemployment. It's immigration who occupies the work that you don't have. Yes, you have this place, you accept. But also because this crisis, very often, at least in Spain, it happens actually. And family covers a lot of needs of the people, yes? If you have a good structure of family, it's much more difficult to survive. But here it happens this way. Probably in Italy it's similar. And wherever these traditional structures of society work, they operate as a social network, yes? At least up to a certain extent. But when you don't have that, when you have a crisis of the family, or it is perceived there is a crisis of the family, then the far right says also feminism is guilty for the upside down of values in our societies. Families don't work anymore, and then you don't have a place to go to get help. Yes, but not just feminism. Also immigration and this feminism too has brought a diversity in many aspects, has brought diversity in gender or sex, diversity in minorities, in languages, and also we have some political problems. Like in Catalonia, you must have heard about the movement for the independence of Catalonia. Yes? I am not in favor of that. I'm not against. I'm in favor of the self-determination. Yes? But anyway, I'm just saying, I'm explaining it for you not to think that I'm talking about independence because I'm independentist. Yes? But the thing is that all these diversity projects, yes, in beliefs, religions, yes, or general beliefs, cultural, sexual, languages, what is that? The right wing says, why should we speak different languages in the Spanish parliament, for instance? Yes? If we all understand each other in Castilian, Castilian to Spanish, or we could say the same in English. Why should we bother for other languages if we all speak English? Yes? They don't understand shit. Sorry. Sometimes. Right. And they say, so we have blaming immigration for unemployment, blaming feminism for the crisis of values in society, and blaming all these projects for all the disorder, for all this chaos. Yes? And on top of all that, this state, this government, instead of helping us, is wasting money, sponsoring all these projects, sponsoring immigrants, or helping immigrants, whatever they need, health, work, housing, yeah? And sponsoring all these feminists around, yeah? This is maybe a little bit simplified, but I don't think so. In reality, it's a broad line, but I think it works that way. Yeah. So what have we done here? What we have done is far right promises this solution. The far right can say this promise because they have not been on government up until now. The left was, and the right was too. Yes? So they say, we are new. That's why the far right is now anti-system. As I think the Americans say anti. No? I learned English washing dishes, so I keep on saying anti, as in London. Yes. Anyway, you follow, please. So they promise that, and they have blamed all these people, so they are guilty of our problems. If you found who is guilty of your problems, you are not going to love them. No, you hate them. That's the poison. Yes, that's the poison in our society. It's not just the far right, actually. The far right does this thing, but the right had already started with social cuts, with, for instance, counting how many foreigners have been getting assistance in health services. Why do you count them? Yes. Or how many foreigners are in prison? They compare. Yes. How many foreigners we have? And say, they're more proportionally. They're more in prison than that should be. Yes. But I mean, not just the right wing, often the left does the same. They're also similar. They count. They count separating us from others. And counting is very dangerous. Because you can count, for instance, how many foreigners are in prison? And say, there's a disproportionate number regarding the population. Yes? But then the answer can be either it's because they are foreigners and they came to steal, to rob, or the answer can be it shows how bad they are treated here. That they have to resort to survive, to steal, or to traffic a little bit, hashish, or whatever. You know that 85% of the population in prison in Spain, it's because they have committed a crime of poverty. That's significant, yes? In fact, the answer is, why do you think there are so many black people in America in prison? It's because black, it's synonymous for crime? No, we all know the answer. It's because there's a lot of racism in that society. Yes, it's the same answer here. So just wrapping up, what I wanted to point out is that this is very important because of that. Because of it, and also because this part, yes, when you do all this, what happens? Vulnerable people tend to approach, to vote, to get nearer the far right. Yes. All this, it's not appearing from the sky, from the blue. Out of the blue. That was the same. It's appearing because there is a crisis, material crisis. This is material crisis, yes. And there is no enough answers. There is no another alternative appearing than this one for these people. Yes. And the field has been prepared. Yes. With this discourse of the right wing often, but also because there is an ethnocentric view in all of our societies. We tend to protect the people we live with. Yes. And we have been educated in things like, my daughter, look for yourself, take care of yourself. Or, son, daughter, the first is the family. And the next is, some of you are French. The next is double you, which was first us, which was the slogan of the right-wing Le Pen's party to grow, first us. Do you know any political party that starts their electoral campaign saying, we are against this principle, we are against first us? No one, yeah? No one. Not because they think that way, because they know that if they say that, they're going to lose. More or less. Yeah? Okay. Then, hate is there. Hate is there. Then comes the media. Yes. How is it reproduced? And we think media. Yes. And if media reproduce hate, maybe media should not cover it. Cover it is one the journalistic sense. Yes. Maybe not, because the information about hate enters into a vicious circle. Yes, this is a vicious circle. First, you have a hate fact. Yes, an attack or a discourse of hate. Yes, someone saying we have to kill all Islamic people, which is nowadays nearly what is being said around here. Not kill them, but they are the problem. Yeah, we have been invaded by them. But lastly, the last, not the last. I read yesterday. I was rushing. I read yesterday that 51% of kids born in Spain or in Catalonia nowadays belong to Muslim families. Can you imagine the reading I mean, how can you read this news? Yes. You could say, well, that's life, but you can also read it in a very racist way, or Islamophobic way, at least. Anyway, so imagine we have a speech act, which is hate, it contains hate, or an attack. Then it's a fact. It comes in the newspaper, or the radio, or whoever it is, or in social networks, and they reproduce it. This has happened, yes. Whatever it is, whatever has happened. It's not objective, because it will be always a certain degree of interpretation, but not just a degree of interpretation. It will be exposed with a certain degree of interpretation, but also it will be understood in different ways, depending on the ideology of those who see, or who watch, or who read this news. Yes? All right. But for many who didn't think about it, let me put it this way, who didn't think about it beforehand, the fact that this exists, that they realize that this has happened, yes, it implies a certain degree of legitimization. If this happens, this is possible, but maybe they're right. Some would say, they're right. Also, yes. So, we get a certain degree of legitimization of this fact. And if this is legitimate, this attack, it spreads the hate ideology which fits news acts of hate. Yes? Okay. What shall we do? What shall we do? First, it's maybe thinking that even if you don't do, others will. Yes. At least nowadays, it's much easier for any political group to have, or movement, to have their own circuits of communication, yes, and spread whatever they like. So, and in society, that this exists. Yeah. Okay. Then let's get the framework of the democracy in here. Yeah. In democracy, we have, well, not just democracy works. Some may say within the balance of different powers. Yes. The Americans say checks and balances. But you probably have also heard about the fourth power. Yeah, which are supposed to be the media. Yes. So you probably have heard this sentence or something similar. Without the press, democracy is impossible, and without democracy, the press is useless. Yes. Why? Why? Yes. Well, that's because you know this Montesquieu theory about democracy? We have three powers: the executive, the government, the parliament, and the judiciary. Yes? And each of them controls the other. Yes, Mark? But the fact is, let me put it simple again. Sorry about this. I'm not simple, but I guess I'm not. I hope you collide that at the end. But all these people live in the same neighborhood. Yeah. All these people belong to the upper class in a way, with some exceptions. And in fact, if you understand that the government, the executive, comes from the parliament, so the executive will have majority in the parliament, so they can control. Parliament can control up to a certain level the government, but just with special crises. If not, it's going to be just a ceremony. Yes, pretend to control, but not really. Yeah. So the thing is, they are establishment, upper class, and actually you can only vote parliament
Second.
every 4 years or maybe 5 years. Yes? And if you have a special president, every 7 years. No? Yes? Well, if there is not a big crisis. Yes? Then who controls this government? Meanwhile, and say the press. The press represents the voice of the people to control those who have power. A long period between elections. Yes. To control means they have to be critical with powers, and they have to do certain tasks, for instance, to see if the government complies their promises. Yes, this is the most. If they are corrupt, etc. Yes. Well, there's a set of conditions I will show you in a minute. That's why, because we have three powers, now comes the media as the fourth power that's going to control the others. As you can already perceive, there is one power missing here. Which one?
People.
No.
Yeah.
Which one?
The owners of the media.
The owners of the media. The media is one power. Well, suppose
The banks.
the banks, the economic power. Yes, the economic power is not in this project. Let's say is absent. In fact, everybody realizes that the real power is the economic one, or one of the biggest, not always, but most of the time, and is the one that controls who wins the elections. If not, look at who sponsors the candidates in the United States, and here and everywhere at the end of the day, it's like that. And because it is blatantly clear, media are also supposed to control economic power. Of course, media, they become their own power, and nowadays, more or less, media are in the hands of economic powers. Yes, they are not just. They have to be an economic power to be independent from other powers, but and that happened for a while. So some media got their relative independence because they were an economic power. Yes. However, they had relations with other economic powers. Well, I could get in deeper in that. Have you heard about the propaganda model? Yeah. No.
There was those.
Chomsky and Herman. Chomsky and Herman studied the media system in the States, but you can translate or transpose this the same idea. Main media, the big media, because they have become an economic power too, they are part of the establishment. And as a result of the filters that the information has to cross before it gets published, what gets published becomes propaganda in favor of the system. Yes? It's not very critical regarding the system. Yes? Anyway, but we can put this aside for a while because it's not the question. You can discuss whatever you like. The thing, okay. I explained that already. So media are supposed to be the fourth power because they are the voice of the people, and supposed to. They have not been elected. But when a journalist asks the president, and the president is not answering, the journalist can say, in the name of the people, you have to answer because I'm here for that. Yes? Because others don't do, I do it. Oh. Right? This is supposed to be our role. Yeah, okay. Then, that was very broad. But if we come down to more specific tasks for media, we can say media, not just to control the powers, if they are representing the voice of the people, they're supposed to be aware of how is living? How are people improving their lives or not? Yes, they have to take care of the well-being of the population, and that pushes them into researching some fields or others, and doing questions to those who have power to change those conditions of life. They have, maybe not the power, but they're supposed to have the power to set up the agendas. Which are the issues that should be discussed? So the government may say, we're going to talk about this and that. Say, no, this is your problem. Our problem, the problem of the people, is this other. Or maybe it's not the problem of the people, but for instance, when the people and the government was not aware of the climate crisis, the press could have played, and it played a little bit, and the role of raising awareness about the climate crisis, yes? They were supposed to be also a place where politicians or speakers of other organizations or movements, not the parliamentary ones or the official ones, could express their ideas and their proposals. So they have to, in a way, collect what's in the society and bring it to the public sphere for all to be understood and discussed if necessary. They had to be a platform for dialogue, because very often parties are just disqualifying each other. Yeah? They don't argue really. They argue in the bad sense. They don't bring arguments and proper discussion. No? Or sometimes we have conflicts in which the actors are just communicating through Molotov cocktails or killing each other. It's a way of communicating. I kill you, you kill me. Then media can work as a platform where, okay, let's see, what do you think? What do you pretend? Which are your aims, etc. Yes? So establishing a dialogue where before was absent. Yes? A few more. And this is what we have been saying, to hold accountability. Yeah. It's making politicians responsible for what they did or for what they did not. Yes, this very why basic principle. But also this principle, which is right, and it's one of the crystallizations of this general principle of being critics. That's más allá. ¿Cuánto?
Sí, no, más que
Vale, sí. Sí. Correct. Yes. This principle of being critical towards power explains quite a lot why media are mostly negative. They tend to point out what doesn't work. Yes, pointing out mistakes, defeats, broken promises, all bad things. Yeah. Politicians complain, you never explain what I did right. And the answer of journalists is, this is not my job. If you do it right, it's okay. I don't have to care about it. But, it's good, it's right, yes. But imagine when you are just saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and you have no alternatives. Yes? You say, it's corruption. How often do you listen media just saying corruption? All politicians are the same. Yes? Not. So they're also contributing to build this atmosphere of Tina. There is no alternative. Yes? Everything is broken, corrupt. Yes? Which is understandable, but at the same time, we have to understand the consequences of it when there is no alternative. Which, let me add these elements to the first map, which is the far right says that when we don't have a rise of social movements. Yes, when we have a certain degree of backlash. Retrocession.
It's correct.
Okay. Encourage citizens to learn, to choose their candidates, and get involved in politics. They're supposed to do that. Yes? And preserve media independence. This is very interesting. I have to rush. Because sometimes you see journalists from the right wing or from the left wing defending each other in front of power, which is why? Yeah, because there is a huge sense of gremlin, the corporative feeling. Yes, it's our trait. Yes, we have to defend each other. This is wrong. This is wrong, in the sense that journalists are political actors, and you should defend those who fight honestly for the same ideas, not those who, even though they call themselves journalists or they are journalists, they do a bad job. They do a very good job for the rich. Yeah. Wall Street Journal is a very good newspaper. Financial Times, the same. And probably the Figaro also, yes? But they are not on the business of global justice. They're on another business. Yes? Have to defend the human rights of every person, journalism, but not defend their positions in politics or journalism. Okay, and treat the audience as they were responsible. Okay. With hate in the middle, we have polarization, echo chambers, So now, we had media with a general audience. Well, as this last study from Reuters that was published yesterday says that more than 50% of the young people don't watch any more TV. They just get informed through social networks. And social networks, you get echo chambers. So you just listen or hear or read people you agree with. So there is no dialogue, there is no debate, there's no questioning of your beliefs. The absence of dialogue, yes, because of polarization. If we need to manage conflicts, if media can be a help to manage conflicts, providing a platform for dialogue, making people to understand, demonizing the others, which is what usually happens in conflict, but with this atmosphere of hate, if you start saying, no, we're human beings, they're lost. Yeah. How to break this circle? Well, I'm going to go. Imagine we have a conflict. It's one example, yes? The conflict of immigration can be explained this way. We have a level of conflict in some places with violence, for instance, or asking for papers, or asking for housing, or against the police attacks, racist attacks, as we had in France, banlieue. We have a certain level of confrontation with violence. But this confrontation is not just all of the conflict. This conflict comes out of inequality, discrimination. Yes. Sometimes from another country, sometimes from our country. And this level of have actors in all levels, yes. But this is ordinary. To understand the violence, you have to understand where it comes from. Then you put it a little bit more sophisticated. Sometimes this inequality or abuse of power or discrimination is some of the government tries to solve it with a law, for instance, the foreign ship law, yes, or immigration laws and things like that. But they don't solve it. And then explodes. Yes? Okay. This is a way to, it's just a symbol of, we need to understand the conflict, yes? To talk about it. Or even, of course, to look for solutions. Or transformation sometimes. Sometimes the solution is far away, but at least we can reduce the tension. We can take the conflict away from violence, because if there is violence, it's not going to be a good dialogue. Because when there is violence, your life is at risk, and it has no sense to do anything if my life is lost. Yes, then this is the spiral of violence. Yes, okay. Anyway, the thing is, this is the conflict. When we have this circle of hate, okay, I cover that, I explain it, yes? But when I explain this, I also add the explanation of the conflict. Why this happens? Because there was discrimination, etc., yes? And then if I do that, it doesn't just fit a new hate, no? Because I have explained the context, have explained together with it a new ways of solving this problem, this issue. And when I explain this is the ideology of hate, I also explain where does it come from. Yes, and now instead of legitimating hate speech, it legitimates hate speech and provides solidarity as an alternative. Solidarity not in the paternalistic way, solidarity as equals. Yes, right. This is it. How to unpoison democracy. In this context, what could we do and what we shall do? Thank you.